Okay, now here in this slide, we just have some properties of rational exponents. And this is up here. I want you all to take note of this. This is some stuff that you probably should know, but if it's stuff you don't remember, go ahead, write it down, because we will be needing this stuff to simplify some rational exponents here. All right, so go ahead, take a screenshot if you have to, write it down in your notes, but I really want you to go ahead and have a refresher on these properties. So let's take a look at combining radical expressions. All right, so here we have the fourth root of x to the third power times the eighth root of x squared. All right, so here we're dividing two radicals that have a different index. So in order to do that, we're going to have to convert both of these into exponential form. All right, so if we do that, right, looking at the index and the power, we can rewrite these. So first, we can say that this is equal to, well, in our numerator we'll have x, and then remember our power, that's the numerator. So this is x to the 3, and then our index is our denominator. So this is x to the 3/4 power, and this is being divided by, we have x, our power here is 2, so that's going to go in our numerator, and our index is 8, so that's going to go in the denominator. So we have x to the 3/4 power over x to the 2/8 power. Now we're going to take a look down here at these properties of rational exponents. And we can see that if we have a to the m over a to the n, that's equal to a to the m minus n. So basically this is saying if you have two like bases that are being divided, we just subtract those exponents. So that's what we'll do here. So this x to the 3/4 over x to the 2/8, that's just going to be equal to x to the 3/4 minus 2/8. And now from here, we just have to go ahead and simplify, actually subtract out that 3/4 minus 2/8. So if we do that, all right, we have to find the common denominator, which is going to be 8 here. Right, so this would become x to the 6/8 minus x to the 6/8 minus 2/8. And well, that's equal to x to the 4/8 power, and that's just equal to x to the 1/2 power. And now we can rewrite that in radical form, right? X to the 1/2 power, that's the same thing as the square root of x. All right, so if you're ever faced with something like this, you have to divide two radicals that have a different index. Well, we can just rewrite them as fractions, right? Or as exponents in exponential form. And then since it's being divided, we have to subtract those exponents. And then we simplify completely and we get our final answer. Now let's take a look at writing these expressions in simplest form. So this says, what is the following expression in simplest form? And we have negative 8x times root xy, all raised to the 2/3 power. And for this one, if we go down to our little chart down here, we're going to have to use this property right here. We have a product raised to a power. So you can see that when you have a product raised to a power, that exponent gets distributed to every single factor inside of your parentheses, right? So if we do that, then that will mean we have that this is equal to negative 8 to the 2/3 power times x to the 2/3 power times the square root of xy all to the 2/3 power. Okay, so now let's go ahead and simplify even more. All right, so negative 8 to the 2/3 power. Well, that's the same thing as the cube root of -8 squared, right? And if we simplify that, the cube root of -8 is -2, and then -2 squared is equal to 4. So this is equal to 4. We have times x to the 2/3 power, so we can't do anything with that. So it'll stay x to the 2/3 power. And now we have the square root of xy to the 2/3 power. Well, we can rewrite that as xy to the 1/2 power, and that's raised to the 2/3 power. Right, so now we can simplify that even more. Right, so we have this power here being raised to another power. So when we do that, we take a look down here, we multiply those exponents. So we have xy to the 1/2 power raised to the 2/3 power. So that will just give us xy to the 1/3 power. Now we can bring down that middle term, x to the 2/3. And now we can still simplify even more, because here we have xy raised to the 1/3 power, right? So we have to, again, raise this x and this y to that 1/3 power. So we do that, and now we have that this is equal to 4 times x to the 2/3 power times x to the 1/3 power times y to the 1/3 power. And now we're almost done. Now we just have to simplify one more time, right? So if we take a look, we see that we have powers of the same base being multiplied together. So when we have powers of the same base being multiplied together, we add those exponents. So we have x to the 2/3 times x to the 1/3. So we add 2/3 plus 1/3. Well, that just gives us 1. So now we have 4 times x times y to the 1/3 power. And we can just rewrite that as 4xy to the 1/3 power.